Welcome everyone to the first ever episode of the Before the Tones podcast. I'm your host, Ben Moorhead. With me is my co-host, Lieutenant Phil Marchand, and my other co-host, Devin Shipper. We started a podcast, and people keep asking me, why do we start a podcast? What are we going to do? And I've kind of told them that's a great question. We're kind of figuring that out as we go. But how about you guys? Has anybody ever told you you guys should write a book, or you should write some of this stuff down? Because I've gotten that before. And actually, members of our department have written a book. I believe Jim Hayden is a best-selling author of his book he wrote a few years ago.
Hero Pants.
Nobel Peace Prize winner, too?
I believe so. I believe it's a New York Times bestseller.
At least he's up for it.
So, anyways, that's kind of what I think this is going to be. There's so many great stories, so many laughs and stuff that we're going to hopefully highlight and tell. It's not our stories. It's not for us. It's for the people that we work with, for them to give a chance to tell some of their moments. So we're going to have some exciting guests. We're going to have current members. We're going to have former members. We're going to have people of the public. Anyone and everyone would be welcome. But we are a fire EMS first responder based podcast. So John, originally from Minnesota as well.
Right. I would agree with God's country.
Did not go to elementary school with Phil.
I did not.
You say if you're not from the range, it's not really Minnesota.
Yeah,
it's like he's from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So
if he doesn't have an accent, it's not really Minnesota.
It's southern Canada.
Yeah, there you go.
Basically.
So what brought you down to Sioux City?
Initially, I came down and went to college at Barcliff. I was going to be a nurse.
Welcome everyone to the second episode of the Before the Tones Drop podcast. I'm your host Ben Moorhead. With me, my co-host Devin Shipper, Phil Marchand. This is episode 2. If you, that's probably one episode further than I thought we'd make it, or anyone else thought we'd make it. We got episode 1 done. Which, what do you guys think? What did you guys think on episode 1?
I thought for us, for first-time podcasters, I thought it went pretty good.
Yeah.
As you can see, right, people are watching right now and seeing a whole new setup. And we learned a lot.
Yeah, we learned
a ton of stuff. So we came back, we made some improvements. I think we're already seeing some things that we can do the next time. So we're just going to build on it.
Yeah, it's going to get better and better.
It was fun. I thought it went good, but
a lot of improv in that first episode. This next one, a little more prepared, a little more scripted.
Yeah.
So if you stuck with us through episode 1, maybe didn't like it, there's a second chance here in episode 2.
Yeah.
We got a fun episode today. I think everyone's going to like it. We got the mustache competition. You've been in the emergency room for how long?
I finished my emergency medicine residency in 2013, so I've been in the emergency department since 2010-ish.
Yeah. Cool. So what's made you stay in emergency medicine? You know, a lot of providers, they do their stint, like I'm gonna move on, go to a clinic, maybe go somewhere where I'm home with my kids a little more sleep, regular. So you gotta like what you do. What makes you want to stay in the emergency room?
Well, part of it is I'm trained in. I'm a specialist of emergency medicine.
Okay.
The clinic is not an option for
me.
Right.
Then I won.
Then you won.
Yeah. Let's back up a little bit. I didn't even compete the first year to make everything fair. Nobody could say that I had it rigged.
Yeah. What do you say to?
What's going on, Ben?
How we doing?
Phil?
How you doing?
Episode 3.
What's up? Living the dream, man.
It's we go a month between these things, so it's always exciting when we do get together. It seems like we've been doing it a while. It's only episode 3, but it's like 2 weeks ago we met, and I've been excited to do it. So it's good to be back. I'm really excited about today's episode. We've made a lot of improvements. If you listened or watched episode 1, we recorded that with an Xbox 360 camera and some audio equipment from the early 40s.
Sonographs.
We sounded like the president talking to the troops that night.
What?
Oh my gosh, Santa! Oh my God,
Santa Claus on the show? What is this? What?
Do you mind if I sit?
Please, sit down.
Wow. This is, if you had told me.
Right. So I knew pretty early on that this is what I wanted to do. And, I looked at a few other things, but this one was really calling my name. And what really drew me here was not only like the camaraderie, but just the excitement, the adventure, and just not knowing what the day is going to bring. And I think that's what really makes it so exciting. And the things that excited me back then still excite me now. And I know you all probably feel the same way, and how exciting and wonderful this job is. And
welcome, everyone, to the 4th episode of the Before the Tones Drop podcast. I'm your host, Ben Moorhead. We just got done recording with George Lindblade. George is not only one of the most fascinating humans that I've ever met, but I'm pretty confident he will be one of the most fascinating humans I'll ever meet. We had a great talk today. Everything from the Sioux City Fire Department, photography, filmography. You're going to hear names like Sinatra and Kennedy and fire chiefs with the Sioux City Fire Department, all in one big conversation. So we hope you guys like it. Take a listen. There's a lot in here. It's a lot of good stuff. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy today's episode.
We know one of the guys that works that show, and we have personally called him and said, "Are you out of your mind? Do you not have a technical representative on the set that is a firefighter or knows anything about what you're doing?" They don't. The real story is more exciting than what you're putting out, and and it is. It's just like when I go out and shoot a fire. If you ever notice any of the stuff I put up, I don't shoot a lot of the building burning. I'm shooting the guys working. Because that's where the story's at. And you can tell it by the expression on their face, the way they handle themselves. That's the story. And over the years, I've found that, believe it or don't, a lot of your wives, girlfriends, and kids comment on those pictures. And that's where the story is how you guys address it.
Hi, this is our host, Ben Moorhead. I don't know anything about nothing.
You introduce
Hosting a
us.
podcast, but I don't
This
know,
is episode 5 of Before the
I was
Tones
worried
Drop
about being the
podcast.
dumb one.
No,
We are
you are
we are
good.
not an ASMR podcast.
Sorry, Ben.
But we
Don't pigeonhole us like that. We could be. Don't pigeonhole
All right,
us.
maybe in the future we'll have more satisfying sounds. For now, you get us. Today we got Paul Hendrickson. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I am honestly, I'm super excited to be here. I know I told you guys earlier that when I saw your first episode, I seriously, I'm like, I want to be in on that. That's cool, and it's been really cool. This is, what'd you say, 5?
Yeah.
No, I know Phil and I for sure that when we started, there was nothing. There was no. When I got into it, the only thing that you were told about mental health or difficulties with calls or anything was that you don't talk about it.
Right.
It's just something that you don't talk about because it tied in with the stigma of it and the hero aspect, if you will, that if you admit that you're having troubles with something, then that means you're weak and you're probably not capable of doing the
You're
job.
not fit for this line
not
of work.
fit for this line of work. Exactly. I and I can talk about it later, but yeah, I had a few experiences like that early on in my career that really made me question. I'm like, well, maybe I'm not cut out for this, and that's too bad. But anyway, I digress. But mental health as it pertains to first responders is a relatively new concept in the landscape of fire service. And I try to include everybody, so I try to say first responders, because it affects everybody: fire, ambulance, police, dispatch, all of the people involved in the system.
I think we're going to start this thing off. 6th episode of Before the Tones Drop podcast, and we have a generational guy here, Derek Trobaugh. So you want to go into that right away on what that means to you and kind of how that got started and where you're at now in the process and where you're at with in the line of succession here?
So St. Florian was started in 1993 by a group of actually 4 firefighters and 4 burn nurses up at St. Luke's when St. Luke's had a burn unit. Initially when it was started, it was there for fundraising for more for prevention. I don't think this at that time, I don't think the department had much of a budget for prevention. So they kind of decided to take their steps to do as much as they could with prevention, and then that eventually grew into being able to offer some survivor support also up at the burn unit and even outside the burn unit also.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 7th episode of Before the Tones Drop podcast, the best podcast on the Sioux City Fire Department. Today we have a very special guest all the way from Council Bluffs. Making the drive is Rob Schoening.
And it's a fine line. I know I've screwed this up personally, probably more times than I've got it right. But if I'm grabbing you and say, hey Devin, let's take a look at this to see what we can learn from it, is different than, hey man, you messed up X, Y, and Z. Now there is a time to say, hey, you messed up X, Y, and Z, but this is a way broader topic that we get into, but me as a friend, coach, mentor that truly wants you to be the absolute best, like I need to make sure that you're comfortable with that. And then I need to be able to, I need to know that you know that deep down in your heart. And so when I say, hey, dude, you kind of messed this up. Let's take a look at it real quick. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
And but I want you to be able to give that back to me too. Like, yo, Cap, what were you saying on the radio? That was some gibberish. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
God, what episode?
Anyone care
Episode
about-
8. Episode 8. Welcome everyone
Eight
to
is great. Great 8.
episode 8 of Before the Tones Drop podcast. It's good to be back. I feel like we haven't been podcasting in a while.
Well, you haven't. The
Yeah.
rest of us have been
The
working.
rest of us have been around.
You
I've been on
take
vacation.
The juice is there. Like that hot call comes out, somebody hits that emergency button during a fight, or that gun call comes out. Is how can you not love it? Turn on the lights and sirens. Because just in the break here, we were talking about the differences in our gigs. It's like, I thought about applying for the fire department, but honestly, fighting a fire doesn't thrill me, But, so when you guys are saying, like, I know the calculus. I show up, I know I got to do A, B, C, and D, It's like, and it's exciting, and I can see it, and it's the same thing for me on the PD side of it. It's like, I know I'm going to this hot call. I know I got tactics that are going to keep me safe, and it's like I'm. If the house is burning, I'm not going in it. You stick a guy in there with a gun, I'm your man. I'll be here.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but it's just that different training and different mindset. But it's still exciting, and everything, and it's you can't deny it. It's like who doesn't love driving lights and sirens or going to do something hot, and that's the juice is still there for sure.
And a lot of departments also been the attitude that it's ours and we don't need anybody else to help us. And I think we've gotten that to go away. There's no way, even as big as Sioux City is, and the great people you have trained, you can't do it all by yourselves all the time.
Right.
No.
Yep.
And used to get, why are you calling them for help? We can do it. No, that's not the way this works. We're looking out for our community. We're looking out for our people, and trying to do the best job that we can. And those relationships are great, I think. No, I just put my little plug in for the Career Academy. I mean, if you have any of you know or any students around here, I mean, we're not just taking Sioux City students. We've had South Sioux, we've had Dakota Valley.
Where do they go to find out information about the Career Academy and to sign them up if they want to get into that?
They can call the school district and ask, or if they're specifically interested in the fire stuff. I mean, they can even message us through social media even.
Okay.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Before the Tones Drop podcast.
Coming in a little hot.
We have a very exciting guest today. We have Colonel Morrison, the commander of the 185th, joining us. We're going to talk about a lot of things, switching gears a little bit more of the military side today, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about some exciting topics, leadership, as well as her exciting military career, and then a little bit about being in the 185th in Sioux City and what that does for Sioux City and the state of Iowa. So, ma'am, thank you for coming on today, and it's a pleasure. I'm excited.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it still always goes back to that piece of not every day is going to be perfect, right? And we're not anything special than anything else. We are absolutely a product of our society, right? And some days might be bad. Some days you might have a complaint about your supervisor. Some days you might be like, man, I really thought that guy walked on water, but he just pissed me off. That is life, right? That's just what happens everywhere we go. And so when airmen get really upset and they're like, I'm going to quit now, usually my advice is just give yourself some time, right? Mm-hmm. Life isn't perfect, right? Were your parents perfect? Were you perfect? People make mistakes, right? And so how do we work through that, and how do we not quit right away, and then hopefully we get to that 6-year mark and maybe they do want to stay, because mm-hmm. then they do see those opportunities for promotion, and they see those opportunities for, hey, I can be that better leader for that young airman, or however that works for them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they might just say, no, I'm done with this, whether it's because they're irritated, but the quick reaction is usually what I try to help alleviate, I guess.
Sure.
It's not going to happen right away.
Welcome back to the Before the Tones Drop podcast. This is episode whatever. If you have been with us for our normal episodes, today will be an abnormal episode. If you don't like listening to Devin, Ben, Phil, and now Ryan talk, go ahead and turn us off. We don't have a guest today. Be like, well, what do you think we can do about it? I'm like, I think we can take care of it. So we went out there, we filled up this crash fire rescue truck, beat the brakes off of it. We actually hit it. We actually ran it into a HESCO.
And there is a preserved set of lungs floating in the water with an esophagus, trachea, the whole bit.
Jesus.
And Paul's like, that's animal, right? And I go,
I hope so.
I hope so. I really hope so. And we get it out of the water with sticks and stuff and lay it on the dock. And I'm like, dude, that's pretty large set of long. And I mean, it had the 2 on the left, 2 lobes on the left and 3 on the right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I go, pigs are super similar, and I've seen pig lungs.
Oh, that was a good story, because that was you we did that to, right? With me and Pedersen?
So that was the illegal burn. It was my first, I don't want to call it fire.
Yeah.
But it was the first time
You
I
don't
saw
call it
any
fire.
sort of fire
Right.
on this job.
That was,
I
we
was
did
on the
that to you,
booster.
Joey.
And there's some lady, she was like,
Oh, yeah, I know how you got the nick.
Yep.
Let her
"You
sleep,
guys
take a
ready
nap for a
for
while.
this? You know who has really good brisket in Sioux City? Is Arby's. Arby's has a really good.
Shut up.
They do. They have a really
Shut
good
up.
brisket sandwich. Go to Arby's.
I haven't been. I
It's the number one brisket sandwich.
meat.
I haven't tried that,
so
but that
good.
range. You can go to any local meat market, any supermarket and stuff. You go to Super One up there. Anybody, you can get a porchetta anywhere. My old man makes porchetta, so he'll get me. He'll tell me, "Hey, I'm making porchetta. Do you want any?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I'll always take it. So, and I've made it at the station stuff. Which Baker, for whatever reason, his palate is too sensitive to eat porchetta, which there is fennel. So, side note: have you guys ever seen Baker's of Mine's delicious hot dog machine?
You got a Rolo Weenie machine?
Yeah, that was
No,
from,
no,
that was
it's
from
a
paintball.
Oh,
right?
duh. Yeah,
Yeah.
we eat them
Yeah.
off at paintball. Yeah.
It's a steamer.
And one of the stations was doing a hot dog eating contest.
Yeah.
My buddy in Ankeny sent me a video the other day. They were doing a hot dog eating contest. First 20 minutes, my boy, Chris Rohde, I will shout out your name right now, 7 down in 20 minutes.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 12th episode of Before the Tones Drop podcast. We are finally able to catch up with Captain Ed Voloshin.
One saying that I've had through the years, I think maybe as a probationary, is probably just, absorb everything you can and be a team player and keep a good attitude. If something is, and they teach all this at threes. I see it with the probies that are on third shift now from being the engine company that backs up or abuts that Station 3 district. They're doing really good. And it's like if there's a wrapper on the floor, pick up the wrapper and clean the floor. Just things like that. But you guys teach all that. One saying that I've had through the years that I had to really teach myself is it's good to be a critical thinker until it turns out you're just being critical. I think is the biggest thing,
That's very good.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everyone to the 1-year anniversary of the Before the Tones Drop podcast. We got a very fun episode today. Our boss, Chief Tom Everett, is in the house. He agreed to be our guest today, so should be very exciting. We have a lot of fun, ask a lot of questions, get to know the chief a little better, and figure out what all goes into being the fire chief here at Sioux City Fire Rescue. So real quick, it is the 1-year anniversary of the podcast, so we'll kind of talk about that before we get into really deep dive into the chief. It's about a 1 year further than most people had us going, so credit to everyone.
Well, I mean, it is a long career, and I think that it's important that you balance that kind of drive that you might have to get better, and that comes from a lot from me, is just that push to constantly improve the department and yourself, but balancing that with your family life and some of those kind of things, taking time to enjoy, and that's both on the job and off. I had a boss a long time ago that said we spend too much time at work not to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so I've always kind of tried to keep that in mind, and I think that it's a career that any career anymore, people don't tend to stay places 30 years or whatever. So you're here for a long time. It's easy. I've seen before where a lot of people kind of get, I don't know, if disenfranchised or in 30 years something's going to happen that makes you upset, whether it's somebody on the staff or some policy or procedure or whatever. And it's easy to kind of head down this kind of rabbit hole of negativity and some of that kind of stuff. And just trying to keep yourself out of that and keep it positive and rebounding when that sort of stuff happens. I mean, we talk about resiliency and some of that. And that's part of it is when I've always felt like when you're around people who are negative, it's like they're trying to suck my joy out of me. And if you're around it long enough, I think you become that, if that makes sense.
Yes,
and
yeah,
you just kind of,
it breeds.
Yeah, it rubs off on you. And next thing you know, you're kind of miserable or complaining and that stuff. So avoid the drama, be positive as much as you can, and just have that perspective that in 30 years, some things are going to go wrong.
For sure.
But some wonderful things are going to happen. And it is an incredible career. Ryan, drop the tones.